Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of pure chaos. We checked out something extremely chaotic with yesterday's Death Grips. Today we're going to be looking at a band called Kayo Dot, which I'm pretty sure we've had on the channel before, but just is not ringing any bells as far as style or what type of music I should be expecting. However, given that it is chaotic week, I'm just going to kind of wager that no matter what I would be expecting anyways, this is not going to be it. So, let's dive into some Kayo Dot, see what's going on. The song is called Floodgate. There's barely anything providing any sense of a landscape or a landmark. It's really difficult to figure out exactly what's going on here or even where one is. The heavily compressed production is not helping at all. There is a repeated drum idea, but I can't find one. It's more of like there is a landmark, it's just in the middle of the phrase. We have an organ of some sort, saxophone, there's so much metric modulation going on here. As soon as I think I've got a tempo or even a time signature, they shift. Maybe not even shifting tempo or meter, but just, modulating on it. So it feels like we've changed. Really neat syncopated cymbal work. There's got to be 3 vocal tracks. There's so much reverb. We have at least 2 melody lines. Solarando, of course. Maybe not. Yesterday we checked out Death Grips. And that was a chaotic track that I ended up making some sense out of. I'm not sure I completely understood it, but I kind of got a vibe of, what it was going on. I felt an overall flow to it. It was a lot of a lot, but it was still a discernible quality of a lot. It mostly resided in a lot of tones and a lot of notes. And so having a structure that I could follow along with and, well or clearly defined sections that I could move along with, it made the song chaotic in a followable way. This, though, is pure chaos. I could not follow this at all. The one thing that I could, well, there were a couple of sections, like we did hit some halftime feeling ideas, and there were a couple of rhythmic concepts in the drums that I picked up on as landmarks. Even if I couldn't find where one was, I recognized that it was an idea within a larger pattern. I really have no footing on this. I was in free fall this entire time, whereas with Death Grips' Hothead, there were at least moments when I was like, oh, okay, I got a chance to calm down, to feel a groove, to understand what's going on around me. That footing might have given way at times, but it did provide me moments of momentary clarity. Whereas here, I don't think I'll have any such any such moment in the analysis of saying, oh, I actually get what's going on here. And that is to say, in a very roundabout way, that this may be a very uneventful analysis section because I have no grasp on this at all. I think this is a song you just kind of take in because my first major point here, it reminds me a lot of free jazz. And I think how a lot of people approach free jazz and how I believe a majority of this was approached is to disassociate from any ideas of palatability, to disassociate from theory, to disassociate from rational reasoning behind action, and to just allow your gut to do what it wants to do. I don't think free jazz, by definition, is formless. I think you can have structure to free jazz. I think, if I'm remembering the definition correctly, it is basically just a lack of defined rules. If an instrumentalist wants to bring some rules to their performance of it, they are more than welcome to. But typically, there are just no rules presented or enforced, I should say, or lightly suggested. However, you want to look at music theory and how genre and sounds are crafted. Obviously, there is no music police. There's no right way to make rock, but there's certainly a wrong way to make rock. If you go to make a classic rock and roll track and you start out with a piano and a pop singer and an upright bass, you're probably not going to end up with a rock track, especially if you're not utilizing rock tropes or rock adjacent ideas. So it's sort of suggested ideas, right? And free jazz to me is just the removal of all suggestion. Anything is possible. If you want to bring your own suggestions to it, you're more than welcome to, but nothing is really going to be enforced to help solidify the idea of the genre or the type of sound you're going for. And in such cases, anything can come out of it. And that's really what I'm getting here. There's some patterns. I mentioned that at least the opening drum idea is a pattern. I recognized 4 or 5 pieces to it, but I had a real tough time differentiating the end and the beginning, which made it hard for me to find a beat 1. But I can tell that when they went to the blast beats and double bass kicks, they did that for what felt to me about 2 beats before moving on, and this happened always in the same place, roughly, within the larger drum idea. I don't know if every other section was as similar as that. It could have been a very specific 4 or 5 bar phrase that was repeated. It could have a very specific number of beats to it, even if it doesn't specifically fit within a consistent time signature. Maybe there is no time signature. When I listen to what the saxophone and the organ are doing in half of this song, to me it's making noise. There doesn't seem to be any sort of observation of meter or tempo. Just kind of playing at whatever speed they want, playing whatever notes they want, pausing and resting when they want, taking breaths when they want. It feels like improvised chaos in the sense that literally there are no rules defining when or how they should perform. And my gut instinct then would be, okay, it doesn't necessarily need to be free time. We can still have free jazz concepts with a counted meter or an observed tempo. Does this song have a meter and tempo then? I don't know. We're going to get into that in a second because I think I need to lay down some ideas before we get into what the underlying beat of the song might be. I mentioned the drums are playing these moving rhythmic concepts. There really isn't much of an idea of time to them. The saxophone and organ are kind of doing their own thing, improvising what I perceive as improvisation, with no adhering chord or key or tempo or really anything. I also did not hear any patterns in some of their stuff, but we'll touch in that on production. I think that a lot of tonality was intentionally obscured. Primarily, I think, for the reason of making it feel less distinct in every way, so that it's more difficult to find core ideas such as phrases. Um, the vocals also, to me, feel very chaotic as far as time goes. Rhythmic concepts, pacing, flow, phrasing. Once again, just like just like any of the other instruments I've pointed out, primarily the sax and the organ, it kind of does what it does when it wants. It's a lot of growling. There are some moments of cleans, but a majority of this is growling, which makes it textual and rhythmic. And textual doesn't inform the meter or the tempo. So we're going to kind of discard that a little bit and focus just on rhythm. Rhythmically, I don't really hear any patterns here. There aren't any overarching phrases that I can hear repeated. There's no licks or riffs, if you will, in the melodic melody writing. In the vocal melody writing. It sort of just pops in sometimes, lays down like 7 or 8 quick notes, leaves, and then comes back later and does the same thing. And again, I can't really see a pattern to any of it. The final instrument that I hear, kind of, is the guitar. Is more than one? To me, they're on the periphery of the song, and they're very distorted, and compressed and hidden. I can't really make out exactly what they're doing. Occasionally, I heard movement in the notes, but if you asked me to play what I heard, I don't know that I could do it. Not even match up the notes, the rhythm of it, much less find the exact notes, because it was such a distorted sound and so covered up by everything else that I barely heard pitches at all. Every once in a while I would hear a shift in pitch, but primarily it was just this fuzzy, distorted hum that existed on the outskirts of the track. So they're not going to give me any information for the meter or tempo either. Honestly, the only instrument here that's going to provide any sort of information in that realm is the drums, and I've already told you guys I had a real tough time deciphering what was happening there. But it's going to have to be what we analyze when we get into that. Before we do, because I've already talked a little bit about this, I want to touch on the production real quick before we get into figuring out what the song is doing. A lot of the, well, actually, I'm going to say it, all of the melodic writing that we hear in the higher end range of notes, which is going to be our organ and saxophone work, is highly muddied. There's a lot of reverb on it. It's not demonstrably pronounced in the mix. It's sort of pushed under what is primarily driven by the vocals and the drums. At least to me, they feel the most prominent in every aspect they're present in. But they're hidden a bit. They have a ton of reverb on them. Occasionally, they even feel muffled. I don't know how you would go about doing that. What type of effect you would need to put on it. But yeah, they're present. You can hear them, but it's not always clear. It's like looking at something through fog. You kind of get the shape of it, but imagine that it doesn't come closer, and it's just still in that fog, and you can kind of make it out. It looks like a ship. You're pretty sure it's some sort of large boat, but you don't really know. And that's kind of what I'm getting here. I can hear organy aspects. I can hear something that sounds very close to a saxophone, but particularly what are they doing, the nuances of their melodic writing, what kind of notes they're playing. Yeah, maybe a little bit at times, but mostly it's kind of inference guesswork. I've kind of basing it on the idea that I know what a saxophone does most of the time, and well, I'm kind of trying to apply what I'm hearing here to more traditional saxophone playing. Same goes for the organ. A lot of this, as I mentioned, I was already in the mental mind of free jazz, so I'm thinking of how a saxophone would improvise with no rules, what kind of sounds we would hear. And for sure, there are plenty of moments where we sort of just slur between two notes. Just there's a few of the fingers are holding specific valves, and then you have one finger that you just bounce back and forth, and you get that wah 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 wah, just back and forth on the same note. There are plenty of times when that's kind of what I heard, just kind of bouncing back and forth between two notes. Um, Other times it's just kind of running up and down, but it's so compressed and hidden and muffled and covered up by the notes that come before it and the notes that come around it, especially when we get to the organ, because of this super wide reverb on it. And I think the growls even got some reverb on it. I know the clean vocals had a ton of reverb, and reverb is just the enemy of clarity. There is a tasteful amount of reverb that you can add, especially when you tweak it in specific ways so that its volume is different. You get a mix of wet and dry on the mix that allows a specific instrument to sound larger or bigger or wider, whatever really you're going for, without covering up anything surrounding it. This is a not tasteful way of doing it. It's an artistic way of adding reverb, for sure. I'm not saying that this is a bad way to do it or the wrong way to use reverb. You guys know me over here. I'm critical, but I'm not cynical. There are, this is not, there's no wrong way to use reverb. It's all about what you're aiming to do. And here, I'm pretty sure they were aiming to just make this as difficult to listen to as possible. Clarity was not the end goal at all. You can tell from every level of production here. So, yeah, just a ton of reverb on pretty much every leading melodic element, or the vocals. I mean, well, like I said, we'll stick with melodic. Technically, the growls don't fit in the melodic idea, but they are the vocals, and we do have clean vocals that just amplifies the amount of reverb that are on them over the harshes anyway, so we're just going to fit it all together. The melodic elements all have a ton of reverb on them, and the reverb is like if you have like three sections in a little pond and you drop pebbles in them and the ripples go around, right? Well, if you drop one and the ripples kind of go through and then they fade and you get a nice little effect. But if you're dropping pebbles in three places at random times, the ripples are all going to clash with each other. And that's what's happening here. All of these different reverbs are really overlapping. They're making it difficult to figure out or to listen to any of the individual voices themselves. And it's also just making it very muddy and unclear to listen to as a whole. It's really difficult to tune into any one instrument, but when you listen to it all as a whole as well, because there's so much reverb, some of the notes that are just single hits kind of extend out past multiple beats. So that changes the feeling of it. It's really difficult to discern what is actually being played here between these three leading instruments. It's just really bonkers. The harshes are super compressed. They do have a bit of width on them, extra reverb, just kind of ties into that. This compression we already talked about is in the guitar as well. It's very muddied, or not muddied, hidden through the compression, distortion, and other destructive elements that remove that core timbre or find ways to hide it underneath a bit of a humming or a fuzz. And then it's even pushed outside to the periphery of the sound sphere anyways, so it really takes a moment to listen in on, especially when you have all of this chaos being presented in front of you. Why would you look to the sides when all this is here? So they really went out of their way to kind of make that a secondary or even tertiary sound. it's something you're actively going to have to listen for. I don't think it's something many are going to pick up casually listening outside of maybe a repeat listen when you're like, I've heard everything else. Maybe something new is going to pop up. You expect everything. And then out of nowhere, you hear these guitars. So every single aspect is either musically, what is on the paper, what is being played, designed to be difficult to follow, or the production is designed to make everything unclear when you listen to it, and it makes the entire song feel timeless, formless, meterless. Is that true, though? Well, that's what I wanted to get into. I needed to talk about how it was obscured first, because I needed to land on the idea that I just recently said, that the drums are the only place that we can find any sort of form in these individual sections. I think that most people could find a sense of form in the overall structure. You might not necessarily say, this is where we begin the new section, this is where we return to a previous section, but I think there are moments when you can just start thinking, hey, this is a little different than where we were a little bit ago, right? And that, again, just goes along with the lack of clarity in the song. Not just clarity within phrases, but clarity within transitions overall. So, yeah, there's definitely points in the song where you're like, oh, things have changed. I don't know when they changed. I might not even be able to tell you how they've changed, but things feel different. So yeah. But going back to the drums, like if we wanted to figure out what was going on in one of these sections, the drums are going to be what tell us. Everything else, to me at least, feels like it exists outside of time and tempo. They all do what they want, free jazz style, no rules. The drummer is either laying down the heartbeat of the song or has decided to be the only person bringing rules into this play at all. And even then, it's a bit oddball. Like I mentioned, they might not be following a static time signature if they're following a time signature at all. I kind of feel out a sense of 4/4, but being that I can't really find one, even when I'm counting in 4, makes me feel like somewhere along the way there's a time shift. Maybe it's like 2 bars of 4, a bar of 3, and a bar of 2, or something like that. And it makes the idea feel, or actually it changes the idea from that core 4/4. Maybe nothing like that is happening at all, and they're just playing a 27 beat phrase. They're not thinking about bars at all. I have no idea what's going on here. What I do know, though, is that the drums provide a sort of beat. Nothing else does. But there's still difficulty here. I had mentioned that I had a hard time figuring out anything of what was going on, and I'm here telling you the drums have the answer. Well, if the drums have the answer, why didn't I figure it out? This is why right here. Metric modulation. This is what makes the entire song difficult to follow. It's also what makes me think that there is possibly an underlying idea that everybody is following in eccentric ways. Metric modulation is something we checked out last week with Frank Zappa's The Black Page. I had mentioned that the use of tuplets and different lengths of tuplets, such as triplets and quintuplets and septuplets, can change the way something feels. For instance, and this is going to be very basic because I'm not going to sit here and attempt to count out nested tuplets to really showcase a strong example of this, but if we are to count every downbeat in 4/4, we get 1, 2, 3, 4. If we were to count out 16th notes, we would subdivide that with E and right? So we're getting 4 hits per beat. So we have 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, da 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 da. So if our song has this core idea, da 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 da, and we shift from 4 beats per bar to 4 hits per beat to 3 hits per beat. We are now shifting from 16th notes to an 8th note triplet, which feels like Da 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 da. So if we are in the 16ths and then we pull back to the triplets, this is what it feels like. Da 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 da. And you can feel it feels like it gets slower, right? We had more and now we have less. In a sense, if we even push this back to just eighth notes, 2 per beat, we would also get that slowing down effect, but it would be subdivided evenly. We would just be cutting out every other beat. Instead of 4, we have 2. That's even, right? Those are both even numbers. They divide between each other, so we have the same hits, right? We aren't doing the e's and the us. We're just doing the one and the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Both of those exist in the 16th notes as well when we're doing 4 per beat. So while we will get a slowing down effect, it will feel like we're still in the same tempo because we're still accenting similar vibes. When we move to the triplet, we are putting 3 in there, which means we're not sitting along the same E and us anymore. We still have the downbeat, but now our new accents are between some of our other ones. And that gives us a different feel and a slowing down of time. And that's why I used triplets instead of duplets, or, well, just eighth notes, 2 per beat. So Frank Zappa used this great in the Black Page to create moments of speeding up and moments of slowing down, primarily without changing time signature or tempo at all. It was really about putting more notes in each beat or less notes in each beat. And the variety of the different ways that the tuplets were utilized could create a variety of different feelings metrically, rhythmically. So it would feel like the song was moving between speeding up and slowing down. We had this push and pull effect that I talked about. And, like I said, it felt like the song was stretching and being squashed together without the meter or the time signature actually changing at all. It's metric modulation. We are changing the meter of the song. We are rhythmically changing aspects of the song without changing the time signature itself. And I think that's what's happening here. There are a lot of moments where we'll go into blast beats and then pull it way back and then move into eighth notes and then stretch that out a little bit less. So it feels like we've slowed down, but not as much as we slowed down last time. And then we'll get back into speeding up. And it feels frantic, it feels chaotic. But I really don't think we're changing tempos every bar. And my hint for that is the fact that not many of the other instruments are following along with this push and pull. Now, follow along with me on this. If the drummer is the only one who makes the song feels like it's slowing down or speeding up, let's remove the drums. Let's focus on everybody else. Nobody else does this. So the tempo and the time signature are probably not moving. They're probably static. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are only in 4/4. It might still be a chaotic collection of time signatures. It might still be an odd phrasing overall. Maybe we are looking at a 31 beat phrase. It's still going to have an oddity to it, but it's not going to be something that is in constant fluctuation, like the drums make it feel it is. Now again, I'm going off this completely on gut. I literally have no idea what is actually going on here. Whoever the composer is for Kayo Dot, maybe it's the whole group, maybe they have a lead writer. Toby Driver's coming to mind, and I don't know if that's accurate. For some reason, every time I've said Kayo Dot, I've said Toby Driver in my mind. I don't know if... Anyways, maybe Toby Driver is the composer and the leader of the band. Maybe I'm just have no idea where that association came from. Anyways, it's I have no idea what they intended. The composer, whoever wrote this track, what they would put on sheet music if they were going to compose it that way, or transcribe it if they've never put it in sheet music before. I don't know where their mind is at. Maybe this is all in free jazz, free time. I mean, where the drummer is bringing this rule to the table and no one else is, so no one else really wanted to mess around with the meter, the rhythmic feel at all. And I could be looking at this in the completely wrong way, where I assume everybody is within a similar idea, an underlying foundation, and that's possible that it's not there either. But at least to me, that's what's going to make the most sense. The opposite would be that the entire thing is improvised and everybody is doing their own thing, and they just know that every, you know, 180 beats or whatever, that they need to move to the next concept, because everybody does move ideas with each other. Maybe there is an overlying structure to the song, but there is no structure to the individual section. So everybody knows when to shift. Maybe somebody is conducting the band in a sense, and they're sitting off to the side and being like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, next section, change it up, right? Kind of not conducting in the sense that they are addressing nuanced ideas, but making sure that the band stays together, collectively moving through these different sections, even if the sections themselves have no written music for them. But every time that I bring up improvisation on this channel, and I think about how awesome it would be to check this stuff out live, because I'm a huge proponent of proponent, is that the word I want? I'm a huge supporter of improvisation in live music. It's one of the reasons that I absolutely love checking out live jazz music, and I typically don't check out live classical music. And even rock, mostly rock. I don't think I've been to many metal bands. Mostly rock concerts, though. I go for my super, super duper favorite bands, and it's not something that I really do for just any band. It's more of like a once a year occasion for me. There's something about the improvisation aspect of jazz music that really stands out to me. And maybe Prague would actually be a good concert for me to check out, because from what you guys have told me in the comments, a lot of jazz bands will play new versions of their music every time they perform. A 3-minute guitar solo becomes a 16-minute exploration, completely improvised. That aspect sounds really neat. I really, it really works for me. I don't know about a 16-minute solo particularly, but the idea that songs are not going to be identical to their studio versions, I certainly like that with the bands I enjoy, and I go see their concerts and stuff. I'm not looking for a purely studio version of it, but the reason I go is to experience the songs I've grown to love. Which makes me wonder why I don't do that more often, because there are some classical tracks I really love. I don't know. I do. I guess this is a part of me I have to explore a little bit more. I don't really think I've ever scrutinized it before. But I do go to more jazz concerts just because I know the song's going to be different than what I've heard before. But I go to rock concerts because it's going to be the same as what I've heard before. Huh. Interesting thing I learned about myself today. Thank you, Kayo Dot. Um, so yeah, I mean, just like every time I brought this up in the past, though, I've been like, no, the band's, it's completely written. The band performs it the same way live every time. Every time that I bring up, this feels improvisational to me. There's no way that this was, pre-written. It's too chaotic for that. No, I'm always corrected on that. They perform it the same way every time. So that makes me think that this is written out somehow. This is all pre-composed, and that sort of blows my mind. But it also tells me that there is an underlying idea. In which case, I'm right then that the drummer is the only one changing any of the metric flow of it, which means that there's an underlying idea that is static. And the drummer's using tuplets to modulate the feeling of the meter without actually changing it itself. So that makes me feel a little bit better about that, assuming I'm right. However, this will be the one time I get the comments, no, actually, this song is improvised. Every show is different. I don't win. I never win. All right. I think that covers everything I can legitimately speak about that I feel I have any understanding of. The production, the ideas, what little ideas I picked up, and the concept of modulation and how it drives a lot of the drumming aspect and how it's a key clue into telling us possibly how the song is constructed. So let's dive into some lyrics here. Uh, when morning cast the stars aside and the chill of night had all but died, as sleep removed its blanket pall from the waking eyes of all, the poet stretched his limbs and dressed and wandered out to see the blessed grove and mound, but with a sound of water that was not there before. Interesting decision to not rhyme this seventh and eighth line where every other line was rhymed. The general story so far is that it's early morning, day had just begun. This poet got out of bed and went outside and found that there was water there that wasn't there before. A singing stream had grown overnight. Okay, that answers that. Centuries old with smooth stones covered in moss, the path to the grove is overtaken. Its source bubbles up from under the earth from the seed. In fact, we have no rhymes anymore. 6 lines of what is it called when they rhyme every other line? Hmm. My English teacher would be very upset with me right now. Not necessarily English. I took poetry analysis courses in in university. Um, so yeah, the rhyme is completely removed here, though. We had 6 lines of a rhyme scheme, and we have shifted to one that doesn't rhyme at all. Our syllabic flow is completely gone. Every line has a different number of syllables. In fact, the flow overall is just removed entirely. It feels more like spoken word here than a poem. Also, it seems that this stream just kind of appeared and that its source seems to be magic that's bubbling from under the earth. The poet drank sweet water from cupped hand's chalice. He was baptized at the stream by a mourning dove. All the loveliness in the world was in her. All the sadness flowed out into the forest and into thin air. Uh, so this dove baptized our dude and took all of his sadness and pushed it out into nothingness. Mist wrapped trees, the tattered shrouds of night as she beckoned downstream. Nothing but death, the ageless kiss of the queen. The most beautiful thing is the deathless unseen. No end to the miraculous water that streamed forth from the earth, and the stream grew into a blue royalty of a river. The cascades that tumble away like lives into the aether surged forth ceaseless like wasted time. As the moon grew fat with days, the river widened and wove its way deeper into the mists and the trees, as an unfinished rhyme as a grief-laden breeze. So yeah, the song is bookended with rhyme, but the middle is lacking. In fact, it's bookended by form entirely. It goes back to a syllabic meter, um, and a rhyme, rhyming every other line as the beginning was. But everything in the middle just feels more spoken word, free poetry, if you will, to go along with our free time and free jazz. Lots of freedom in this song. Oh, that would not have been. I'm not going to say that joke. We're going to stay not political right now. Um, but yeah, so I mean, the story right here is this dude woke up at the break of dawn, give or take, went outside and found this stream and went and drank from it. And then a dove came by. I was like, bro, let me baptize you. And he's like, yeah, let's go. And all his sadness was taken out of him. And then there was something about a kiss of the queen that brings death, kind of said and passed. Because after that, then we check back out to the stream and it's like forever, man. Just goes off to the horizon and it's beautiful. Just, a river that continues to widen. Just the most gorgeous piece of water. Of course, it is also very sweet to drink. It's probably the best water this poet has ever had. And it just continues on for everyone else in the land to enjoy as well. Maybe they'll be baptized by doves. And that's it. The stream appeared. It was an awesome stream. Also, there's this kiss of the queen that brought death, but the stream was pretty wicked. And I don't know what's with that passing idea of the most beautiful thing in the deathless unseen. I don't know, kind of weird, but also I don't understand how any of this has to do with the music, which just kind of fits because the music barely fits with the music. So I really wasn't expecting chaos in the lyrics either. In fact, this is a very straightforward, kind of boring song lyrically, which just adds to the raw chaos and makes me ask why. Why are all the sounds covered up and muddied? Why is there so much reverb? Why are the drums pushing and pulling when no one else is? Why does it feel like no one's playing with each other? And why are the lyrics so mundane? Why is just a really good thing to ask for this song. So those are my thoughts on Kayo Dot's Floodgates. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this one, anything that stood out to you, anything you want to correct me on or add on to what I said, or anything. Does Toby Driver have anything to do with this band? I don't know why that connection's in my brain, but it is, and now it's bugging me. I guess leave that in the comments as well. I don't even know who Toby Driver is. Like, I know the name, and I have this association with Kayo Dot, but it's not like Mike Patton, where I know who Mike Patton is, and I have like his name associated with several acts, and like I've seen his face, and I know like his core act, what I know him best for, and like side projects he's done. Toby Driver is just this name I have in my head, and I keep thinking maybe there is no Toby Driver. Maybe I'm just thinking of Adam Driver. And now I'm thinking, is Driver even Adam's last name? The dude who played the dad from Marriage Story. Like, is that Adam Driver? Is his last name Driver? Now I'm really confused. I'm going to end this before we run into an existential spiral because the music is not helping me find any answers either about anything. Above the comments section is a description box, and then there's a link for Linktree, which takes you to this menu right here. It has everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch, help support the channel through special selections, or Patreon. Both will allow you to craft the future of the channel and what we check out. You can also follow me on Twitter for updates and news. You can join the Discord community and find more of a relaxed way to communicate with me and the community at large. Until next time, remember, above that, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all three of those. We have a special selection that's for today. It is our final song for Gong Tuesday. We will not have another Gong Tuesday, unfortunately. I've enjoyed these. Gong is an interesting band. Can kind of put them in the chaotic realm. I've had a real time deciphering what they're doing, but it's always interesting. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as always. I'm going to check out some more chaos and check out a special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.